Hey folks, it's Keith, Victor Echo 3 Sierra Victor Quebec, and sometimes Victor Alpha 3 Kilo Echo India, mainly contests and the odd time in POTA. What I want to look at today is what happens more or less when you're on the air, that transition, that change that will come over you. We often say learning Morse code is a journey. And it really is. So if you're at the beginning of that journey, it very often seems like it will never end, right? You're studying week after week, month after month, whatever it takes to master the Morse code. The ability at least to copy and send the letters and numbers and so on. So we tend to get wrapped up in that and we tend to lose sight of the ultimate goal, which actually is not to get on the air. And I know that's the big fuss everybody makes. Oh my goodness, you got on the air. Congratulations. To me, that's only part of the journey. To me, the real proof is, do you stay in CW? Do you keep using it? Or once you're on the air, do you use it maybe for a week, 2 weeks, a month? And then you walk away from it and forget. Same as many of us did back in the 80s, 90s, and so on. In my case, I think it was 35 years I walked away from it. So to me, the real proof is, do you stay at it? Are you having fun? And that's number one criteria. Is this fun? So there are changes that come about, changes that you will feel only if you stick to that CW journey. And that's some of what I want to look at today. What happens? What happens to you? What happens to your thought process, to your practicing, and so on, once you've made that, well, famous first contact on the air. So that's what we're going to look at today. So when you begin your CW journey, right, you're learning letters, numbers, all that type of stuff. And it seems like it will never end. So your obsession, if you want, at that point in your journey, is perfection. Many of us, myself included, got hung up on how perfect were we? How perfect did we copy whatever it was we heard? Because, we're all doing computer exercises and computers spoil us really because we can sit there and you can, work a program and then go back and calculate, how accurate was I? Geez, I only got 90%. So we get hung up on that type of thing. That's one of our issues when we're learning. The other is just the frustration, the amount of time it takes, the amount of practice it takes. So those are your issues when you first start. As you progress and as you get ready to get on the air, that's replaced by a whole bunch of new fears. How will I do? Will I sound stupid? Will I make mistakes? How good will I be? Will the other operator be able to copy me? Oh my goodness, I now have to copy someone sending me live code. All these different fears come about. So you've made that first contact. Now you're transitioning to a new set of fears, if you want to call it that, a new set of issues that you're going to have to work through. And it's all part of the journey. If you look at it similar to, I don't know, putting a ladder up against a house and you're climbing, rung by rung by rung to get to the roof. That's really what CW is like. You start on the ground, you start with your letters, you start working your way up. Some way, part way up, you've now gone on the air. Now you're dealing with a whole set of new issues. And just how accurate were those fears way back, months and months ago? You're about to find out what it's like. It's really not that bad. Now, there's no doubt that a lot of the things that I obsessed about when I was learning Morse code largely faded once I was on the air. This obsession about getting 100% copy every time. When you're on the air, you suddenly realize if you can get enough copy to understand what that person was sending you, congratulations, you've done well. So that's one of the fears that very quickly disappears. I don't need to be 100% perfect. What I need to be able to do is to understand what they are sending, right? That's the key thing. I have to be able to follow what they are sending. I don't have to write down every single letter and number that they send me unless it's important, call sign, maybe the RST, that type of thing. So that obsession with perfection and wondering if I would be good enough on the air to copy every single thing that person sent me, that disappeared. And for me, that was one of the big ones. I've then found out that letters that totally screwed me up when I was learning Morse code, I had tremendous trouble with. Now that I was on the air and I was relaxed, a little bit more relaxed anyways, I began to pick them out. And suddenly those letters were no longer the thing holding me back. And even if I missed one of those letters and they were sending me, who knows, a sentence or whatever, it largely wasn't the end of the world. I began to realize that I could send my call sign really well and that people would understand it and get back to me. So there's lots of little victories that you win in this part of your journey as you transition to spending time on the air. And those are just a couple of them. So my first recommendation when you get on the air is to keep it simple. I think most of us go to, Parks on the Air, POTA, Straight Key Century Club, if you're using a straight key, or other events that maybe CW Ops will be running. The K1 USN, the SST event. We start there. One, because we're copying people calling CQ and we're responding to them. We're sending whatever information is required of us back and forth and copying their information as well. So it's a first step. Some of us will pretty much stay there for a long, long time because we are having fun and we're doing what we wanted. I know with myself, I started primarily with the SKCC and POTA. Probably knocked off 100 POTA parks over a couple of months. And for me, that was the reward, the satisfaction of doing it. SKCC as well, hunting for their Centurion Award, which is 100 different contacts and so on. So there are things you can do to keep you motivated, and the entire time, it's proving a couple of things to you. Number one, you're good enough to do it. And number two, after all that hard work, Morse code is actually a lot of fun, and that is what it's all about. So keep it simple. Start with some events that, it's a very standard sort of response. If you're not sure what to say, because that becomes one of the big fears once you're on the air, what do you say? Well, if you're doing those particular events, POTA, SKCC, or the K1 USN SST, they have on their websites, a description of what a call would look like back and forth. Make yourself a cheat sheet so you know what it is you have to say, and it's there. You're not going to be required to do this all from memory. Look at the sheet, relax, have fun, and as you go forward, you're going to find much of what you're doing, it's not from memory any longer. It just seems to come naturally. It's like sending your call sign. It reaches that point where you can be doing something and sending your call sign at the same time. And I always say it's like I can send my call sign in my sleep now. You're going to get to that point. And you won't even realize it until you look back sometime, take a pause and go, oh, where am I? And you look back and you realize how far you've come. So that's the type of confidence you get. All these issues that you worried about, the big fears back then, learning your letters, your numbers, that's replaced by, well, what do I do once I'm on the air? Then once you solve that particular problem, your cheat sheet, whatever, and you start to spend more time on the air, it's always replaced by something different. Maybe this time it's going to be, when am I going to call CQ? Will I ever call CQ? Do I want to call CQ? Oh my goodness, I'm expected to rag chew. No, you're not. But some people love rag chewing. There's lots of rewards for what we call marathon conversations of over an hour. Some people really get into that. It's not my style. I prefer, shorter. But those fears are replaced. That fear about, will I understand what the other operator's sending if he's sending a little faster than what I normally copy? That's largely replaced because now you can copy probably a lot faster than you thought you could. I wouldn't suggest you necessarily try and send faster unless you know you can. Send at the speed that works for you, send at the speed that's accurate for you. The other operator will usually adjust. And you get used to that. If you're trying to call a POTA station, and maybe you're able to do, I don't know, 12 words per minute, and it's at, let's say, 19 words per minute, you're going to find you can copy them. You can understand what they're sending. So when you send at whatever speed you're good at, many of them will slow down to your speed. And over time, even that doesn't matter to you anymore because you can copy what they're sending back to you. I had one operator the other day, and he was very, very nice. He was in a park, and I think I was doing about, I'm going to say 12 words per minute on a straight key. He was obviously on a paddle, and he was up around 23 words per minute. And he was just calling CQ over and over and over again and not getting any response. So I sent him my call sign. He came back, and he was really nice. He slowed down to my speed in order to answer me. And the thought that went through my head, I mean, sounds silly, was, why is he slowing down? I don't want him to slow down. So things change. Your thoughts, your perceptions of what you would be afraid of or what would happen, all of that changes. All right. So, like I say, it's a transition, it's a journey. You're now in a whole different phase of learning or using Morse code. That big fear you had that you would make mistakes, and oh my goodness, how awful that would be, that largely disappears because you realize everyone else you're talking to is making mistakes too. Doesn't matter how good an operator they are. We all make mistakes. So that was just, for me, was one of the biggest fears, if you want to call it that. That disappears. I make a mistake, I make the correction. It's as simple as that. The other operator makes a mistake, they make the correction. And you realize no one cares if you make a pile of mistakes. I listen to some of the newer operators, obviously newer operators in parks, and you can tell the frustration where, someone's got a difficult call sign, like my VE3SVQ call sign. That's a tough one for a new operator in a park with a compromised antenna. And they might, you get question mark after question mark after question mark, and you can tell the poor operator is getting frustrated. That could be you. It has been me, sitting in a park trying to copy it, someone sending a difficult call sign. But you do it, you get the call sign eventually correct. The other operator will usually be patient, and you move on. And then you realize it wasn't so bad after all. It's like calling CQ. How many people are terrified of that? When I first went on the air, that was exactly what I did. I said, I'm just going to go on and call CQ. Right? We all address this a different way. The other thing I did to get over it, we have a contest, a Canadian summer and Canadian winter contest. So I went in, and our equivalent of the ARRL, the W18W station, we have one here in Ottawa, which is where the Canadian headquarters is. And they were looking for Morse code operators for one of these contests. So I volunteered, go into a powerful station and you're nervous about calling CQ, that goes away really fast after 3 or 4 hours on the air. So lots of different ways to learn it. Not a big requirement. Some people may never call CQ. They just like to answer. It's about having fun. It's not about being perfect. And that's a key thing to keep in mind. Now, as I mentioned, as I transitioned, one of my biggest fears was what to say, when to say it, what order, and so on. That was replaced by simply doing it, going to the websites of the various organizations, copying down the sequence that they had for what I should be saying, what I should be responding with, and so on, or what I would be copying from the other guy. So the events that I mentioned, the SKCC, POTA, the K1USN, the SST, pretty specific information that is exchanged. So once you've got it, and as I always said, make a cheat sheet. You're home free. You know what to expect. You know what the other person's going to be sending you. You may not know the exact number if you're doing membership numbers, or even that you can look up. So you can relax and have fun. And I think we always start some way like that. A lot of us use POTA. Why? Because POTA is a very exact sort of script. And we get comfortable. We get comfortable on the air exchanging that with people in parks as a hunter. You may eventually decide you even want to be an activator, although there's no requirement to do so. So it's all about building confidence, getting a lot of confidence as you move forward, realizing you're human, the other operator's human, you all make mistakes, but getting that confidence that you can actually do that. It's not going to happen in 1 day, 2 days, 5 days. It might take a couple of months, several months, who knows? Whatever length of time it will take you, you will gradually build up that confidence that yes, you can do this and yes, you can have fun doing it. And that's the really big transition that takes forward. So why not set a bunch of new goals? If your original goal was to learn Morse code, then your second goal was to get on the air. Why not find some new goals now? Maybe it's to hunt a certain number of parks, which is what I did. I think I hunted over 100 of them at one point. Set that goal. Maybe it's the SKCC, if you're using a straight key or one of the mechanical keys. You try to get that Centurion Award, 100 different contacts with people, all sorts of events, whatever club you belong to, whichever organization you went to learn Morse code, they probably have some events that you can take part in. And if not, there's all sorts of other ones. You have the events, the QSO parties, big events. Why not join in some of those? Get in some of those. Get used to exchanging. And the other thing, of course, you're going to be doing through all of this, you're going to be doing a lot of listening. Right? You listen far more than you actually send when you actually get into Morse code. You're listening all the time. You're hearing call signs. You're hearing people calling CQ. Your ears get tuned to that. Suddenly, call signs, which may have been a big hang-up, no, now you're getting them. You've gone from obsessing about getting every single word copied down to recognizing Morse code abbreviations. Someone sends you TUFERURCALL. You may not even write that down. Why? Because you're reading what they're sending to you. Thank you for your call. So you're starting to pick all of this up, and it happens without you even realizing it's happening. Right? That's the beauty to this stage of transition. So much of what you worried about as you go forward and as you get on the air and as you go back and forth with people, a lot of that disappears, and you don't even realize that you've transitioned from writing down, TUFER and so on to thank you for. So you transition. It's all about your journey, your CW journey. You will also notice that one of your biggest fears, many people anyway, from what they tell me, is are you fast enough? You don't have to worry about it. The more you're on the air, the more you're sending, whether you're using paddle, straight key, whatever, your speed will pick up. You won't even realize it. It just happens. Maybe you were doing 10 words a minute with a straight key. And 2, 3, 4 months later, you're probably up somewhere around 12 words per minute, maybe more, depending on how much time you spend on the air, how much sending you do, including sending practice, because I still practice sending. So many of the fears that were there are replaced simply by one word, F-U-N, fun. All your fears are rapidly disappearing. Now the big one are going to stay at it. At this stage, you've gone through a huge transition from trying to learn individual letters and numbers, up to knowing those, getting on the air, which was, the big deal. You've been on the air for a while now. You've made your mistakes. You realized you're human just like everybody else. So now you're transitioned to the next stage, and without even realizing it, you've moved from a student to a beginner to being a Morse code operator. So your journey, it's still not over, because in Morse code, you always learn something. You're never the perfect person who knows everything about Morse code. There's always things to learn. But your journey is well underway. You should be at the point now where, you can flip on your radio, you tune in, you don't even think about, oh my goodness, can I copy his call sign? You just sit back and you listen. And you go, oh, okay, I know who that is. So, enjoy this part of your journey, because now you are a Morse code operator. Still a long way to go. You'll never be perfect, but you're at the point where it's fun. If you like this video, please comment down below, and of course, share and whatever, even comment. It's Keith, Victor Echo 3, Sierra Victor Quebec, the shaky key. Wishing you a great day. 73.